today? I'm Steven Marcelino Jr., Vice President of Sales with Lapolis Electric, and I'm here today with Safet, owner of Conti's Bakery in the Bronx. Saf, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Steve. Thank you.
No problem. So, Saf, I know you have a very interesting story, starting back from when you were young. Grew up in the Bronx to two immigrant parents.
Absolutely.
And I want you to break a little bit into that story of where you came from, and ultimately talk to the people about where you are today, and how growing up in that environment shaped your mindset to be a hustler and kind of live that American dream.
Okay. Two immigrant parents from former Yugoslavia, now Montenegro. I'm the firstborn. I have two sisters behind me. My parents came here in the early 70s. I was born in the mid 70s. I'm going to be 50 this year, which is crazy to me. I don't feel it. I don't feel it, but I feel it sometimes. But so my parents came here with nothing. Literally, the old school immigrant dream. Came here with zero. Wanted to make a better life for themselves. They did the best that they could for us. My father worked in a factory for 38 years. My mom was a cleaning lady for 35 years. They put us through Catholic school our whole lives. I went to Fordham Prep High School. My sisters went to St. Catherine's in the Bronx. I ended up going to St. John's Pharmacy, believe it or not, for 2 years. And then
over in Yonkers, right?
St. John's Pharmacy is in St. John's University in Queens. And then decided to not be a pharmacist, so pursued other dreams.
Awesome.
As far as like what set me up, what set up my hustler / business minded mentality. Growing up in a house with immigrant parents, and they always pushed education. They always pushed discipline, and to strive for something better than what we came from. And unfortunately, in my family, I didn't have anybody with a business background. My immediate family, my parents, and I really didn't have any uncles or aunts that were doing any type of business. But being a first generation American is funny because you kind of you're pushed into maturity at a very young age. So at 8 years old, I was my parents' translator. I was my parents' bank account reconciliation guy. I was literally doing things that adults do. Some young adults today can't do because they don't know how to do it.
Nobody this day and age knows how to do anything.
Right. So I was pushed into these roles as at a very young age, and kind of trying to figure things out. Where most kids at 8, 9, 10 years old outside playing. I mean, I was playing also, but at the end of the day, I was home, literally helping my parents translate mail and, kind of get things done, logistical stuff, like normal daily stuff.
Yeah. But for a kid, you had a lot of responsibility.
Especially as a firstborn. Yeah, especially that's like being a firstborn, you just feel kind of pushed into this role.
You were like the second man in the house.
Second man in the house at a very young age. So didn't really have any business guidance per se growing up, but when I was 16 years old, I worked at a pharmacy, and the guy that I worked for at the time, he's no longer around, but he had 5 or 6 pharmacies, and I was working for the guy. I was 15 to 16 years old, I think, and I thought I wanted to be a pharmacist. That's why I went into St. John's Pharmacy. What I realized when I was at St. John's is, man, this guy's a pharmacist, but he doesn't really he's not a pill counter. The guy's just running 5 businesses, 6 businesses. So I want to be that guy. I don't want to be a pharmacist counting pills. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's a reasonable, beautiful profession. But I wanted to be the guy that runs multiple businesses or even one business. Just kind of take it from there. And while I was in college, I left St. John's. I ended up at Baruch for accounting, and didn't do accounting either. I just, I finished, and I ended up getting my real estate license in 1995. So I started doing rentals, and ended up getting my health and my life and health insurance license.
Wow.
Also, I became a notary public.
You had a lot of accolades.
I did, and I got my property and casualty insurance license. So I was selling car insurance, renting apartments, doing life and health insurance for people, just trying to kind of figure out where to go, which direction you're going to. And that was in the mid '90s, and early 2000s. I was kind of doing a little bit of that still, doing rentals. I bought a couple of properties. I was in my early to mid 20s. I borrowed, scraped, and did everything I could to buy a property, and that worked out for me. That was in 2000, 2001. I bought a little 12-family building. Barely had any money in my name. I was 24 years old, and bought it in 2001. cleaned it up, fixed it, raised the rents, and sold it a few years later for like a $400,000 profit. So
Wow.
that was kind of my start where like I wanted to do a little bit more in real estate. But during that time, Conti's Bakery fell into my lap. So one of my childhood friends, the bakery's been around for 103 years this year. And
You guys recently got the street named after
we
you,
did
right?
it about 3 years ago. Yeah,
Congratulations, that's awesome.
it's amazing. Thank you. It's a big feat actually because we're one of like 3 or 4 businesses in New York City in all the 5 boroughs that has a business named after that has a street named after a
I
business.
saw that.
Yeah, mostly it's just individuals. So I
Very
think it's a solid accomplishment. I think for
that
us.
is a good accomplishment.
So Conti's owned the place for the family had owned it for 81 years. The grandson of the original owner, Orlando, sold it to my current baker and his brother-in-law. And his brother-in-law, who's my childhood friend, was in the mortgage business. So he kind of stepped in to help his brother-in-law out because his brother-in-law was a baker, worked for Artuzzo's on Arthur Avenue, on 187th Street. And they weren't really doing well. I mean, one is a baker, the other one's a mortgage broker, so he really wasn't dedicating his time to the bakery.
Yeah.
And I think one day over lunch, he was just like, listen, I'm getting rid of this place. I can't do it. And the place wasn't making money. It was like on its last leg. It was just kind of open,
It was just there.
It was just there. It wasn't like the old Conti's that was bustling in the 40s and 50s and 60s. So I said, maybe I'll buy it from you. He said, what are you going to do with it? I said, I don't know. I'll buy it. Figure it out. Do something with it. And I bought it in 2003. So I took it over October 1st of 2003. And I bought it. I was still doing the real estate stuff. I still had a couple of properties. This is before I had sold that 12-family building. And I wasn't really 100% into it. So I had like an auction set up to sell the equipment with Amadeo Auctioneers. I don't know if they're even still around. And it was supposed to be set up for like mid-November. And they had to postpone the auction until January.
Okay.
So January was the auction. November and December was super busy. Thanksgiving, Christmas, the holidays. Made my money back. Everything I paid for the bakery, I made back basically. So I canceled the auction and kept it. And I said, maybe there's something to this. It was still a slow grind, though. So that was 2003. 2004 was my first full year. The place really wasn't like, it was just like, just getting back to like its old luster. You know what I mean? I kind of like cleaned it up a little bit. Every dollar I made, I reinvested back into the business.
Very important.
Which is necessary, I think, with a business like that, or any business really. The first few years it's important to not draw anything from a business.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to expect your business to grow, but don't invest any money into the growth of the business, it's not going to go.
Doesn't work
anywhere.
that way,
It's
right?
Stagnant.
Right. You got to invest your time. You have to invest your energy, invest money. And again, it doesn't have to be a lot of money, but whatever you have, whatever you make.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, we were paying our bills, so the bakery was paying its bills. I was making a couple of dollars from it, but it wasn't killing it by any means. It was just, believe it or not, Stephen, people were actually like guys that I grew up with. Some of the people I knew, my teenage and early 20s were like, what are you doing here? You're just kind of like spinning your wheels, not doing anything. But I had a bigger vision. I thought that we could do something with it because of the name, because of its location. It's on Morris Park Avenue. It was a very, when I bought it, predominantly Italian, Irish, Jewish neighborhood. It's since changed. The demographic is different now, but I'm busier than I've ever been, which is crazy. So we built it up over the years. In 2010 is when it really started taking off. Like 6 solid years after I was really like in that place.
Wow.
And it takes time, like every other business. I mean, listen,
Yeah, it's anything takes time. Anything that is worth, in my opinion, anything that is worth sustaining takes time to build.
Of course.
The whole perception of overnight success. And,
no such thing, brother.
No
such thing.
People just blowing up. People see the success, and they didn't know about you before, so they assume it was overnight.
Right.
But 9 times out of 10, like you just expressed, you got the bakery. You said in 2003.
Right.
At what point would you say it turned from, the grind to you could say I made it? This bakery.
Listen, I still don't think I made it. I still don't feel like I made it. That's the problem. You always, a guy like me, a guy like you, who's in sales, we always feel like there's more to do, right? There's always more. I don't feel like I'm done yet. I'm still going to go. I'm going to be 50 years old, I said in June.
Yep.
And most guys my age are kind of like, the guys in the finance world and stuff like that, they're trying to figure out their retirement. I don't even know what that word is.
Yeah.
I mean, I also don't forget. I just told you I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old and another kid on the way, so I'm not retiring anytime soon.
No.
Listen, not that I'm in there baking. I'm there 22 years, and I've never once baked anything there. I can make a nice espresso, but other than that, I don't know how to do anything else. But I have a great crew. I have 30 plus employees. I have a fantastic staff, and
that's so. Sorry, not to cut you off, but you just said something very important that I think any real entrepreneur will completely resonate with. It's not about can I go bake the cake? Can I go, upgrade a electrical panel or whatever industry you're in. It's about knowing what your vision is and employing the right people
to execute
that specialize in that specific area of the business to execute. Because any successful business owner, and I kind of want to backtrack to something you were touching on in the beginning of what you were saying, any successful business owner doesn't know how to do it all. And if they say they do, 9 times out of 10, they're full of shit.
Stephen, they're full of shit. We just touched, sorry to cut you off, we just touched a little bit about your father-in-law. Yeah. Perfect example. Those guys have
17 locations.
17 locations. Yeah. There's only 2 guys.
Yeah.
How are they running 17 locations? With an amazing staff, with equity partners, I'm sure, in most of these places. Yeah. You have to give people a little push and a little incentive in order to do the right thing for you. Yep. That's how I built this business, right?
It's true.
Again, I don't bake. Yep. If every single one of my bakers ends up walking out tomorrow, which they wouldn't because I treat them very, very well, I'm basically done.
Yeah.
There's no Contis. So that's how I look at it every morning when I wake up. I have to do the right thing, treat these people the right way, make sure they're happy, right? Yep. It's not just about money also. A lot of people think it's just about money. It's not everybody's driven by money.
Nope.
All those things I was telling you about earlier, right? The real estate, the insurance licenses. It wasn't really, the money wasn't driving me because I really wasn't making a killing. I wasn't killing it.
No, yeah.
It was just I wanted knowledge and I wanted to kind of figure out all these things and how do I get to my ultimate goal, whatever that was at the time. Obviously, your ultimate goal, your goals always change every year, right? I mean, mine do anyway. Every year, every 5 years, they always change. But having the right people around you is the only way you succeed.
100%. And that's actually what I wanted to touch on. You brought it back up. In the beginning, you did so many different things, the mortgage, the real estate, the pharmacy school. And it kind of ties into that comment I made before about any successful entrepreneur has people in place to make sure the business is operating in the direction they want it to go to. I think the CEO or the owner's primary job is, or somebody that's in a position that is working on the business and not day-to-day in the business, the overall function for that person is to make sure all those pieces are in the right place to execute the vision of the company, to make sure that the company is growing, everybody has a job to go to in the morning, to make sure that the company culture is in the right place, like you just touched on, to achieve that ultimate, end goal of, the vision of the business owner, whatever that vision is. Everybody has a different vision for what they want. So how important is it, like you had mentioned earlier, you were focused on a few different things. How important is it to just focus on one thing and become great at it?
That's a perfect question. And I'll tell you what happened with Conti's and why it succeeded. So one of my cousins, probably late 2009, so right before we really started doing business, started doing these elaborate cakes that we're doing now and just pushing the business forward. I was doing all these things, the insurance, the real estate rentals, a couple of sales here and there. I remember us having lunch or dinner. I don't remember what time of day it was, but we were sitting down and he said, you got to focus on one thing, brother. You got to focus on one thing. Your head is all over the place, And he said, once you focus on this one thing, I'm sure it's going to pop off, basically. It's going to take off. And that's exactly what I did. I kind of let everything go. I still keep my real estate license active. That's the only actually license that I keep active because I'm still involved in real estate.
Yeah.
So I figured, let me keep that one active. I no longer have my insurance licenses active and stuff like that. And although I kept that license active, I stopped doing rentals. I stopped doing sales. I stopped doing all of that stuff. Kept it active just for my own purposes. Buy a house, sell a house for myself, flip it, make a few bucks in between. But I started focusing 100% on Conti's. And that's when it took off. So it took me about 6 years to really kind of figure that out. That, you want to do all these things, but you just can't do it. You can't spread yourself that thin. You know, I focused 100% on Conti's. I'm lucky to have my sister working with me. We have a partner, Christina, who's amazing.
That's
You know, they're
awesome.
both educated. They both went to school for different things, but I kind of pulled them back in and said, this is how we're going to make our lives, basically. This is the business. This is going to be the vehicle that gets us to where we want to be in life. And again, it's not about money. It's about passion. And the two of them have a lot of passion for what they do. And they're an important piece of the puzzle. I could never have done it without them. I could never have grown Conti's from when I bought it. It was 4 people, 4 employees.
Wow.
To 30 plus. And again, don't forget, Stephen, it's a small bakery on Morris Park Avenue.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I'm big. I have 4,000 square feet, but we do 500 cakes a week.
Yeah, that's
out of that little place.
Holy shit.
You know, so 500 cakes a week is a feat, you know, and when I speak to my purveyors, the guys who sell me flour and sugar and stuff like that, they seem to think that I'm the busiest bakery in the Bronx and Westchester. I like to believe that because I do 500 cakes a week, but that was our goal, to be like the best bakery in like around. You
That's
know?
awesome.
And listen, there's guys that are better than us, and I'm friends with all of them, and they're great guys, and I want everybody to succeed. There's enough for everybody to go
there's
around.
enough for everybody.
But my whole point was to make us as good as we could possibly be.
100%.
Right, that was the goal. And when I focused on that in 2010, we just noticed everything go. You know, it just exponential growth from there on.
So talk a little bit about your successes, because you talked about kind of like the build up and, you know, where you were and where you're at now. I mean, one of them alone, 500 cakes a week. That's
crazy.
I mean, that's
stressful.
That's a lot of cake.
Yeah,
that's a lot of cake. And
Sure.
I know you do a lot of very cool designs. You do weddings. I'm sure corporate caterings. I think I saw a picture of you on Instagram, and I want to find this picture and cut it into this episode so people could see it that may be watching. It was like, because you're a tall guy. How tall are you?
6'4".
6'4".
Yeah.
This cake must have been like 10 feet
Yes,
tall.
that was actually last. It was a friend of mine got married in this past summer, past fall, and the cake was 12 tiers. One of the bigger cakes that we've ever made. Yeah,
12 tiers.
Huge. Yeah.
Do people even eat the entire cake?
No,
what,
it's
what do they do at
impossible.
that point?
12 tiers was for like 2,500 people. But the guy happens to have a lot of money. He's a big real estate developer in the Bronx. He wanted the biggest cake that we've ever made. And I made him that big cake. But
so you made him a big cake, and you also broke a Conti's record.
We also broke a Conti's record, yeah. And it was
awesome.
stressful making, stressful delivering, stressful setting up. You know, people, you only see the finished product. You said this earlier, right?
100%.
People only see the quote unquote success of somebody, right? They don't see what goes into the backstory of getting there. You know,
it's true.
Goes for anybody. Goes for me. Goes for your in-laws and anybody else who's in business.
It's
Lapolis Electric.
Yeah.
These guys started from zero. You know, going door to door, changing outlets. I'm sure.
Yeah, it started from nothing.
You know,
I mean, Carmine and I, you know, we did our pilot episode together, and he talks about it. You know, when he first started, he was keeping light fixtures in his mother's kitchen cabinets.
That's how it starts, man.
You know, that's how it starts. And now, you know, we're coming up on 41 years in business in May. So it's
sick. Plus, how many employees?
Between the office and our field staff, we fluctuate between 400 or 500 employees.
That's it. You know,
So,
you're like,
you know,
come on.
it's just a couple people.
It's amazing, right? From 1 to 500. It's amazing.
It's
amazing.
It's insane, you know. And he'll always tell you, you know, he couldn't have gotten to where he is without the team that's
Absolutely.
behind him.
Absolutely.
And
I'm sure there's people out there that are looking at him, right? Carmine, you said, right? And say, wow, look at this guy. Oh, he made it. It only took him 41 years.
And he'll tell you the same way you said it before. He'll say, I still got work to do.
Of course,
you know,
man.
He's 65, almost, you know, 66 years old, and retirement is not a word in his vocabulary.
What would he do? I mean, unless he's got like hobbies that he does every day. There's no.
But listen, though, at the end of the day, those hobbies he works into his you know, his work-life balance.
Right.
You know, and that's what it's all about. Any successful, you know, because him too, you know, immigrant parents, and you know, grew up in South Yonkers, and you know, my father-in-law is an immigrant himself from Italy,
Sure.
and you know, my father, he comes from immigrant parents too. All these guys know in the older generation is what the life they built. You know,
Right.
Their business it's their baby.
Right, and it's all work.
And it's all work.
It's all work.
But they love what they do.
Absolutely.
So they wake up
to.
every morning.
You have to.
They wake up every morning and they don't see it as a rat race.
No.
They see it as, I'm going to do what I love to do.
Absolutely.
And that's how I feel. You know, I wake up every morning, I'm excited. I do the podcast for Lapolis. I have a lot of responsibility of, you know, back in the office for managing the sales team and making sure the business is operating, and, you know, making sure our clients are happy, and all this, you know, all these great things. I find it fun, you know.
Absolutely. If you don't, we're doing something wrong.
Exactly.
Right? It's not all about, listen, it's not the money chase. It's not any of that.
No.
It's just getting up in the morning and loving what you do, loving the people you're around, the people that you're working with. that's the motivation. You know what I mean?
100%.
The discipline is different, but that's the motivation. Just getting up and seeing the people that you love seeing every day, including your family, obviously. And this
Yeah.
is a part of the reason that we do what we do. And I don't see
100%.
like an end to this because we do it for our family, right? We do it for our kids. We do it for to make our parents proud, right? That's a big reason why. That's a big push that I also had. Going back to your original question as to what, what pushed me and what got me to this level, to this point. Just wanted to make my parents proud. I wanted to make sure that they were satisfied with coming to this country, right? The reason was not for them to be successful; it's for the children to be successful and have a better life. You know what I mean? Have an easier life. They came from a communist, place and very poverty. I mean, it's a fact. Last time I was there was 2018, unfortunately. And when I go back and I see how my mom and my dad grew up, and like I'm building a house in New Rochelle now, that's like, and my parents are going to be moving in with us.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I just, I want my parents to feel like, they made it, basically.
Yeah.
And that's why I do what I do, man. Because I could stay in the Bronx for the rest of my life. I'm perfectly comfortable where I am.
Yeah.
But I do it for my wife, my children, and my parents. I want them to kind of like reap the benefits of
all the hard work that you
all the
put in.
hard work that I've done
Yeah.
and continue to do.
That's what it's all about. You don't do you don't put in your time, so to speak, to not elevate the people around you.
That's
and make
exactly
them
what it's
feel,
for.
Make them feel like they have a good life, and it's a lot. There's a lot of 14 to 18 hour days where you have to put in the work, and when you're able to give back to the family, it's kind of like, this is why I
That's
did
the
what
reward.
this is why I do what
That's
I do.
100% the reward.
The vacations, the dinners, doing
Everything.
all that extra
Everything.
stuff to make them happy. It's why we wake up and
Absolutely.
grind every day.
Absolutely.
And it's a beautiful thing. So, 500 cakes. Talk to me a little, because I know December is probably a crazy time of the year for you.
December, believe it or not. So what we've done at Conti's, I mean, bakery business in general has always, all bakeries have always been busy from Thanksgiving until the first day of January. So January 1st is kind of like when it ends, right?
So what does
the
that
busy
look like?
season.
What is the
It looks
busy
like a lot of retail. It looks like a lot of like thousands of pounds of cookies, thousands of pounds of pastries, a lot of layer cakes, like individual grab and go stuff. But believe it or not, over the course of the last 10 years or so, one of our busiest times now has gone from Thanksgiving through December, to May and June.
Really?
All the religious holidays, all of the, it starts kind of like St. Joseph's, which is coming up March 19th.
Yep.
St. Joseph's through Easter, all the confirmations, communions, graduations. Then wedding season begins. So really, our like mid-April to like the end of June is like another solid busy season for us. So like during that time, we average anywhere from like 400 to 500 cakes a week, like I said. May and June is more like 700 cakes a week.
Wow.
So it's just like all hands on deck. Blackout dates for my employees. They can't go. You can take off if you're sick, obviously, but no vacations, nothing like that. These are the days that I need everybody around. So basically, it's like a 60-day period that everybody's going to be making cakes, working, delivering, whatever has to get done. And I jump on a delivery truck also. I'm sure you've seen some of our videos.
Yeah, I've seen some.
I'm on the truck
funny.
too, making deliveries, man. You got to do it.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it
right?
takes to get the cake to the customer.
That's all that matters, And at the end of the day, that ties back into like that customer service is so important.
The most important. Without them, we have nothing.
Nothing.
And this is part of my speech when I speak to my employees. I mean, we have to treat these people like gold. Doesn't matter what you think, who you think they are, or what you think they have. Everybody gets treated equally.
That's it.
We give them the right product with a smile on our faces and make sure it's proper. I make sure it's done properly. And if it's not, it's our fault. It's not their fault. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, we have to correct it. So if we have to eat the cake ourselves, basically, I mean that figuratively, obviously. Although sometimes we do actually eat the cake.
Yeah.
But we eat the cake. We make them cake. We give it to them for nothing if we have to, if it's not done right. So that's the most important thing. And Lapolis, you know this from your work, right? If the customer's not satisfied, they won't refer you to anybody else. That's just a fact.
That's the big thing. They won't refer you, and they're not going to come back to keep doing
You're done
business
with them,
you.
right?
And my whole being at Lapolis, and this is something that is like one of our core values, is that customer service.
Absolutely.
Everyone we deal with, we want to feel like they were handled with that white glove service. If one of our electricians is walking into a building and they have mud on their shoes, wipe your shoes off at the door.
Yep.
Don't track mud through the building. It's those little things that go such a long way when you're dealing with people that they'll pick up on, they'll notice.
Most people will.
Most people
people
will
will.
notice. They're not going to say anything to you,
Right.
but they'll say, "Wow, that guy checked in with me at the end of the day just to let me know that they got X, Y, and Z done, and they shook my hand and said, 'Have a nice night.'"
Yep.
You know, when I get those calls that our technicians are going that extra mile to make sure that the chief engineer of a building, you know, is happy at the end of the day, just to say goodbye to them. You know,
It's amazing.
that means everything to me.
Absolutely, it
In
does.
my eyes, that means we're doing our job right at making sure that everybody has the same brand message.
Absolutely.
Which is extremely important to me. So one question I had to ask, I think Tony mentioned it to me. You guys do the desserts for the Legend Suites at Yankee Stadium,
We
right?
do. That's coming up actually in a few
Oh, is
weeks.
it?
Yeah. So their first, actually, we do Legends, Audi suites. We do all the Yankee games, all the Yankee home games,
Wow.
and all the NYCFC soccer games.
Oh, do
so
you?
So they just texted me this morning on the way up here that there's a game March 8th, I think, is their
Wow.
first game. So we
That's
should be in
awesome.
our first order March 8th, and that's it. The season. So that adds on to that stress that we were talking about before. So April, May, and June are super busy with cakes, and then we also have the beginning of like baseball season. So
So aside from like the big, you know, account, I mean, Yankee Stadium alone is a massive account.
tremendous, yeah.
What other kind of corporate accounts do you handle that expect that level of service from your bakery?
I mean, I feel like everyone expects that level of service. But what do we handle? We handle a bunch of catering halls that we've been handling for years.
Very nice.
One of our favorite is the Bronx Zoo, believe it or not. A lot of
yeah?
people don't know there's a wedding venue
Oh, wow.
inside the zoo, and we do all their wedding cakes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
That's fun.
So those are the. I mean, listen, the Bronx Zoo. We do the New York Aquarium in Brooklyn, which is
Oh, nice.
affiliated with the Bronx Zoo. So
Yeah.
we do them, and just quite a few catering halls in Westchester, and
That's
a
very nice.
few in Manhattan.
So,
But I would say the Bronx Zoo and the Yankees are most prestigious accounts, right? I mean, they've been around for hundreds of years.
Yeah, those are
Right.
big names that, you know, whether you're in in New York or in Europe, people know
Absolutely.
Yankee Stadium.
New York Yankees.
I always break chops. I'm a diehard Yankee fan. You know, any Mets fans watching this, I don't hold it against you, but you know, you go into any country, any island around the world, everybody has a Yankee hat on.
Of course they do, man.
You
New York
know?
Yankees, staple of the sport. How do you feel
So-
about the new facial hair?
Man, I mean, listen, that's like talking about politics at this point with the Yankees. But you know, listen, I personally think the Yankees should keep the rule the way it is.
I agree with
I
you.
think the
I agree with
Yankees
you on
are an
this one.
organization that have always been known as a clean cut.
Yep.
You know, just very well ran business more than anything. They're
Sure.
a baseball team, but they've always given that very clean cut aspect of, you know, what it is to be a Yankee. You know, Jeter, Babe Ruth. You know,
Yep.
you have all these, you know, monsters of the, you know, the sport that have
Come through that organization.
come through those
Absolutely.
ranks. And Aaron Judge even said it the other day in his latest press conference. If facial hair is deterring you from being a Yankee, then I don't think you have a spot on this team.
It's amazing.
And you know that goes back to company culture. You know, if your team, if your employees, if your, you know, your coworkers really live and breathe what it is to work with Contis, what it is to be with Lapolis, what it is to be a Yankee, you know, everybody else is going to have the same message across the board
Yeah.
and really live those core values of what it is to be a part of the organization that you're a part of.
Right.
You know, because those are the things that make a team or make a company in my eyes, is those core values.
I agree.
So we're going to start, you know, winding down a little bit here, but I want you to tell the listeners, if they stop by Conti's, you know, if it's not a custom cake, what are some of the specials that you guys make that people should be trying when they come into your bakery?
It's another thing I should have mentioned earlier, right? So one of the reasons, one of the main reasons the place is around so long, and you know, when I bought this place for my friend and my baker who still
Yeah.
works for me today. You know, some of their recipes, the original recipes from 1921, is part of
Wow.
what I bought. So those are the Boston cream pie, which a lot of people know about. I still get people drive from all over the place and pick up a Boston cream pie. Our banana and chocolate cream pies are super. You know, it's the old school recipe. We make our custard with heavy cream,
I'm getting hungry.
all
right
whipped by hand, man. It's crazy. So I mean, those are the three main staples of Conti's. That's what I would say. Other than like the specialty cakes now and all the layer cakes that we sell, the chocolate mousses and the tiramisus and stuff like that. A lot of people that know Conti's automatically associated with the Boston cream pie.
now. Oh, wow.
Because we were,
I didn't know that.
yeah,
You
we
learn
were,
something new every day.
you know, outside of the Parker House in Boston, we're the only ones that really made it, I think, up to par with them. We had a beef once years ago. So the Parker House is a hotel up in Boston where it was originated, the Boston cream pie. So
Wow.
I was thinking about changing the name to New York cream pie, but
You should.
I'm going to keep it for now because it works. But the Boston cream pie, the banana chocolate cream pie, our cheesecakes are phenomenal. I pretty much like anything anything like in that variation, like the cheesecakes. Any one of the cheesecakes you get is excellent.
Awesome.
That's our recipe, not the Conti recipe, but I think it's phenomenal.
That's
But
great.
the Boston, the banana, the chocolate cream pies are great.
I
We
think-
still make our cannoli by hand. We don't buy frozen stuff. So
No,
it's
you have to make it.
you know,
by
so
hand.
a lot of bakeries have changed, and I have to be. I'm guilty of it also because, some of the old school ways of baking have died out. Things say you could waste a whole day making cannoli shells. So not a lot of places make cannoli shells anymore. And but we still make our cannoli cream. We still make a lot of our own. A lot of our own cake. Almost 99% of our stuff in the store is made in house.
Wow.
So
You guys do like lobster tails
we
and
do
pastries like that.
We do.
So you guys got it all. You're the real deal.
We do. We're
That's
all
That's a real Bronx, New York bakery.
fully
right there.
functional Bronx, New York bakery. Yeah,
That's
everything.
it.
Everything.
Gotta love it.
Coffee, espressos. We bring a little coffee into the place too once in a while.
You
So.
have to.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen that on your Instagram before. You guys do a lot of different like cappuccinos, lattes.
Right.
So you got a little bit of everything. for
Seasonal stuff.
everybody.
We do. Yeah, that's one of the reasons that we've become so successful over the years.
That's awesome.
Kind of add a lot of aspects to the business.
I
So,
love it.
Yeah.
We'll end on this. This may go up for debate, but we might have to figure out sanctioning like a Boston cream pie like judging contest between you and the Parker House
Absolutely,
in
man.
Boston.
Let's
get,
do it.
Get it on the
let's,
Food
let's,
Network or
let's
something
do it.
like
Yeah,
that.
let's figure that out.
We got to figure it out and get it going. I think aside from publicity, we could settle the long-term debate of who's
Right.
got the better Boston cream pie.
Right. I'm gonna have to side with us, obviously.
I'll have to side with you too, being a New York native. I mean, Parker House, if you guys are watching this and you want to put your Boston cream pie up to the test, reach out to my friend Saf over here, and we'll get the Food Network involved and get a little contest going
Let's
for you
do
guys.
it. Let's do it.
Listen, Saf.
Pleasure being here.
Thank you
Thank
very
brother.
much. I appreciate you, a guy of your stature and with all your accomplishments coming onto the show, talking a little bit about where you came from and where you are today. This will be a great listen for people that are trying to kind of figure out their entrepreneurial path or, what they should be doing in general. And, hopefully, you gave a lot of good advice today for people to
Thanks,
listen
brother.
to.
Thanks
So,
for having me here.
Thank you very much for joining us. And again, I'm Stephen Marcelino Jr., Vice President of Sales with Lapolis Electric. And we thank you all that listened today for watching another episode of the Beyond the Blueprint podcast. We'll catch you next time. Thank you.